install Joomla using what we call Office Installer, and all that really is the latest version of Joomla 1.5 combined, bundled with a couple of extensions that we install every single time. Advanced Module Manager, Cache Cleaner, Modules Anyway, pretty much the extensions that we install on every single site. So, okay. So to install, you just go to the Joomla installer, and we're going to select the component. Have any of you ever used template parameters as a way to configure your template? Yeah? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so when we initially started with Morph, we had all of the configuration options as template parameters. But as the framework grew and we were quite limited with what we could actually do with that, so we actually developed an admin component which allows you, it acts as a dashboard and allows you to manage all the various features in the framework. So I'll just install that. Okay. So this is our installer, and in this step I'm just going to install the template. And the themelet. So just to give you a brief overview, Morph is made up of 3 different sections. There's the admin component, the template, which is the framework. That's where all the functionality is. All the HTML is done, all the PHP, that's where it sort of manages all the features. The themelet, which is the same principle as a child theme in WordPress. So themelets are made up of CSS, images, you've got XML presets, so if you want to pre-configure the settings, you just add by the XML. And then if you want to extend it, then you can add custom PHP, custom JavaScript. But I'll get into that more once we're up and running. Okay, so that's Morph is now installed, and I can go straight to the dashboard. And it's not really optimized for the small screen. So, okay, this is the dashboard that controls pretty much everything in Morph. At the top here, the shelf, you can see you've got, it shows you the version that you have installed and what the latest version is. So as we release new updates, you're automatically notified. Because of the way that Morph is built, we're able to release new updates a lot more frequently than if you were doing a traditional template. Because all the functionality is separated when you upgrade, all that happens is you get access to all those new features, any performance updates, but it doesn't actually impact your site design. So, and then it shows you which is your current themelet, child themelet you have installed, and then these are just some reference guides, built-in documentation that goes over the various features. There's quite a few new concepts that we've introduced in Morph. So it is recommended that you go through the documentation. When you install it on, like if you install Morph on a standard Joomla install, by default Joomla uses left and right module positions. So most of the modules in the sidebars are either published to the left or the right position. But with Morph, the sidebars are completely interchangeable. So it doesn't make sense to name either left or right because they can be displayed on either side of your main content. So we've named them inner and outer. So So when you first get it, each of the tabs has a description explaining sort of how the function, like what the purpose is behind the options that are there. If we just look at the general tab, allows you to customize the width, set a custom body suffix, enable global wrap. All that really does is it adds a div around your main blocks. So if you wanted to have a fixed design, your main Joomla folder, and you'll see there's two new folders here. It's the Morph assets and Morph recycle bin. So the recycle bin is obviously the recycle bin where anything you delete. The assets is your background, backups, iPhone media, your logos, and your themelets. So to create your own themelet, you literally just take vanilla, the base one, just rename the folder. Do you have espresso? My favorite code editor. Okay. What do you use for writing code? TextLink. Okay. Drag the folder. Okay. So this is what makes up a themelet. There's essentially you have a CSS folder, and you'll see there's quite a few CSS files there. There's a lot of them can be deleted. All of them won't be loaded if you're not using a specific feature. So in the quick installer, we have a couple of modules that we've developed, like a way to display your contact information, pulling your latest Twitter tweets, and obviously those CSS files are for those features, but they won't be loaded if you're not using it. The Accordions is for the Accordions module Chrome that I showed you earlier. Then you've got the Joomla CSS, so all the Joomla layouts, all the CSS for the Joomla layouts is in a Joomla.css file. The modules is obviously all your module CSS. Then we've got the side nav default, so that's if you just want to display a menu in your sidebar, and you just want to have a normal plain menu. But then if you want to have the side fish menu where you actually display a flyout menu, then it'll use the side nav side fish CSS file. Then there's the tabs and themelet CSS. The themelet CSS is the one that you would use the most because that's where you implement most of your design elements. So that's kind of like your template CSS in traditional Joomla templating. We've also added browser CSS files. So Firefox.css, Opera.css, Chrome.css, WebKit. So for example, WebKit will load if the person is visiting using Chrome or Safari. Because they use the same engine, the fixes that you do on the one will apply to the other. And those CSS files are only loaded when the person is actually visiting your site in one of those browsers. And that really makes doing cross-browser fixing much, much easier. It also helps you to do CSS, implement CSS3. So for example, if you want to have on your block, you want to have a gradient. So you going between two colors and takes up the full width of the block, you can use simple CSS3 syntax and display the vendor specific. So Firefox has their own way of doing that. Safari has their own way of doing that. Opera has their own way of doing that. So you would display the relevant snippet in each of those files. And the advantage is when you actually running your site through the CSS validation, the validator has its own rendering engine. So none of those CSS files are ever picked up, and your CSS will always pass validation. One of the other cool things that we've done in Morph is we've added a series of classes to your body element. So the body element, in basic terms, is the second most top level elements that's rendered on the page. And you use that as a hook for CSS. So we automatically will output the current component that you're on, so whether it's comp content, the view that you're on, so the home page, the task that the component's on. So for example, if you're editing an article, automatically add the language, which is useful if you put a multilingual site and you have a graphic which is, say for example in Malay, but then on the English version you want to have that graphic say English. You just use the prefix of the current of the language and create an overriding style. So when somebody goes with an English browser, automatically they see the English version of the image. There's things like the user type, so whether the user is a guest or an administrator or manager, you can customize the look and feel based on that. We also add the current Zoo app. If you're using the Zoo CCK extension, which is the one I'll be talking about later, we automatically add the app based on the app name to the body element. So the operating system, whether it's Mac or Linux or PC, and those classes can be used in really clever ways. Like, for example, another one is the time of day. So if you wanted to display a different background on your site based on whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, it literally just takes adding that class in front of the body element, and it's super easy.
So I'm going to talk about Enterprise 2.0, but first, before I start, anyone prefer early lunch? Yeah. Oh, okay? Then never mind. Because you asked for it, so we'll continue. First, I just had some very interesting facts I found yesterday, actually. So, for example, there's a new blog created every second. So the moment I stand here, 1, 2, or there's a lot of blogs coming up every second. Okay. And another interesting fact is that company emails is expected to grow about 30% annually. So if this year you're handling 100 emails per day, next year you can expect 130 emails per day. And Facebook, the last time that I'm aware of, there are like 500 million users, but as of yesterday, they are going to hit 700 million users in the next probably few weeks. So, and in January alone, there's approximately 1.3 billion page views online on all sorts of websites, but 60% of them is actually on social media sites like Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, on all sorts of community sites. Okay, so why is this? It's because there is a new. Okay, and also this shows that it's getting very popular, all the social media sites. And it's because we have a new generation of user, of people here, and it's called Generation C. Okay, it's not X, Y, Z, or we skip all the way, go back, because we ran out of alphabet already. Go back all the way, skip A, B, go straight to C. And it's C because it's this generation basically communicate in a connected environment conversationally. That means they are always connected. Especially the younger guys, they have never lived in a world where there's no internet. Okay, when I was young, there's no internet, so I know what the world without internet is. But some of you guys have never known a world without internet, so I can't really imagine how that must be like. And they are working in your office right now. These people who never seen the world without internet. So, how do we engage this Generation C? well, we can buy your social, okay, and that's it, yeah. Or, let's go on, you can create connected and collaborative environment, right? So that is obvious, right? Or, but how? How do you create this connected environment? Okay. So what you do is that you can implement web technologies and deliver this value that this generation sees value. Value such as casual, they like to be casual, they come to office with this, they like to be cool, they're very creative people, they prefer choices, and they like convenience. In the old times when people are working, they call it working from the cradle to grave. That means from one company all the way to the end. But now when people work, it's more like a transaction. So they are working for that particular project, and then sometimes they're gone immediately. So in short, what you do is when you apply this web technology to your workplace, it's kind of like they have a word for it called Enterprise 2.0. Okay, Enterprise 2.0. It's not exactly Web 2.0. So what it really means is that it's an application of Web 2.0 that you guys familiar, all those things, Facebook, blah blah blah, in a business environment. So if you look at it, in business, probably you have like product development, marketing, sales, customer operations. Okay, so you apply those concepts. For example, product development and marketing, you crowdsource some of those development and get it like Chris doing, get a feedback from the user. Okay, let them do the thinking for you. So you can just do the work what's relevant. In terms of marketing, sales, and customer service, you can build online communities to support this function. Okay, and in terms of operation, for example, you put everything on the cloud. Put it out there, the cloud. So this Enterprise 2.0 is basically the nature of work is changing, and the impact is because of the communication, and it is becoming relevant because of Web 2.0 technologies are basically coming to age and then becoming very